You and I both know that branding is more than pretty colors, lovely, sparkly pictures, and showing up online. We know that. But doesn't it make you feel better when you look good? However, a few of us feel a little bit artistically stunted in the world of visual branding. I hear you loud and clear. And that's why I've got Rachel here today. Rachel's going to tell us a little bit about herself, why this topic matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I am a personal branding expert, and I specialize in helping entrepreneurs create a personal brand that allows them to show up authentically in the online space and show your awesome self to the world and let your freak flag fly without actually scaring off the opportunities that you are trying to attract your way. And I honestly believe that that is the hardest thing to do, where in the world of marketing, we're told to stand out and be special. But there's always this big red line that we are always really, really scared to cross of, I want to show people who I am, that I'm weird and nerdy and quirky. But what if I do it too much? Is there such thing as too much? And that's a lot of the questions that I help my clients solve. And especially when it comes to the way that you present yourself online, I often find that you have to be authentic in the way that you show up. Otherwise, it feels really unnatural. It feels weird and it feels clunky. And when you go to networking events and you put your links in the chat and you're like, hey, check out my stuff, connect with me afterwards. But if what you're sending to people doesn't feel like a good representation of who you are, that can really seriously mess up your confidence when it comes to you putting yourself out there. You're like, check out my links, but don't really check out my links. That's not a good representation of me. And I often find that that is the case for most people. So when it comes to the work that I do, I am always a proponent of drinking my own Kool-Aid. I myself was in this situation when it came to the way that I presented myself in the business world. And I did it in a way that felt really unnatural for a very, very long time. And it got to the point where I was so uncomfortable with the way that I showed up that I was like, I need to change this because my business is dying because I am not showing up the way that I need to and the way that people need to see from me. So when it comes to the way that you present yourself, I feel like it's really important not to focus on the visuals. Yes, we are shallow creatures. I'm not gonna, I can't really sugarcoat that. We are shallow creatures. It helps when you see something that is visually appealing and stylish to you. Mm-hmm. But at the very core of it, I think the most important thing is presenting yourself in a way that feels right to you. And that's more of a feeling. So when it comes to a lot of the work that I do with my clients, yes, we do eventually talk about colors and fonts and logos and all of the pretty things. We always start first with talking about what is your brand and how do you want other people to see you? What's your vibe? What is the other side of you that is the very human side that you want to infuse into your professional presence? And we start with that. We start with the core of what you're trying to communicate first, and then the answers of how do we capture and present that come afterwards. And I think that's often people often start with a very backwards approach with that. They usually they're like, oh, I need to present myself better. I'm going to look at everyone else in my industry, take a look at how they're presenting themselves and be like, oh, I guess this is the trend. I'm going to do that, but like do my spin on that. Yes, it's good to do your research and see what's out there, but also don't let that affect the way that you choose to present yourself, because you are completely unique for yourself. And that is the most important thing to steer all of the creative decisions in terms of how to actually present yourself. So that is a big blurb about everything that I do and how I love supporting my clients.
Honestly, though, like you just did a full circle, like, welcome to Visual Branding 101 with Rachel Lee. Truly, though, you started with authenticity and you finished with authenticity. And everyone here knows that's the thing that I love. I love it when people can just lean into themselves and emerge that fresh breath of fresh air. Blah, 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 blah. I need to start doing those training things with my tongues. Dig a potato. That's what Gordon Lightfoot used to do. Anyways, I digress. I want to talk about a few things that you said. The first thing that I want to say, you asked about, is it too much? What is too much when you're exploring who you are and how you're showing up? And I don't know if you follow this person, but I follow her borderline religiously, is Elise Myers. And she says to anybody who says, oh, you're too much, go find less. Sorry, but Elise Myers, she's got it. So if you're ever hesitating, I just want to put this out into the world to, because I'm all about that back end stuff, the behind the scenes, your brand identity. If you're ever going, is that too much? Is it you? Because if it's you, friend, it's perfect. Okay. Yeah. And I love that you're able to take that juicy, delicious, sticky stuff and turn it into something that's tangible and real, which moves me on to the other thing, which I would like to talk about in a little bit more detail, is that idea that you said we are shallow creatures. We are drawn to this pretty aesthetic. And I get it, because that's a really important part of your marketing. In fact, a lot of my research in rhetoric, which is the art of persuasion, and marketing, landed me in the space of things like ads. And while a lot of people like to focus on copywriting, I am a copywriter. I know the copywriting needs to be good, but nobody is going to read the copy if the picture hasn't already compelled you to look.
Yes.
So let's talk about that first, because I think that's going to make a big impact in the perspectives of people who are going, it's just a logo or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think in the business world, we've gotten to the point where everyone across the board can agree, yes, the logo is not going to carry everything. It's about the overall experience that you're creating. And it's more of the feeling that you're creating with the combination of all of your visual, the visual fluffy stuff, and the thing that people experience, rather than, oh, like what's the anatomy of the logo. Honestly, I create logos for a living and nobody fucking cares. Like, nobody does. What matters is you feel like it's a good representation of you, and the vibe that you're putting out attracts the right people into your world. And to the point of what you said before about being too much, you almost want to turn up the volume on those things that are you, to repel the people who aren't the right fit. Because I don't know about you, but I've spent enough time working with people who aren't the right fit and put myself in positions where I was completely miserable. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I ended up attracting these people because I watered down my brand and I became a yes person and I wanted to open the door for everyone, but I ended up having a terrible time because not everyone is going to be the right fit for me. Not everyone digs my cat ears and pink background. Not everybody likes the Pokemon and Minecraft stuff I have, because that's just not their thing. And you know what? It means we aren't the right fit, but it means that you are the best fit for somebody else, and we both dodge a bullet that way. So it's actually better for everyone if you are just turn up the volume on the things that make you different. People actually want to see more of that. And the people who aren't the right fit, they're going to prune themselves out pretty darn quickly.
Absolutely. I love what you said there, because there's a huge dynamic shift that's been happening over the course of the last 5 to 10 years in the marketing space. And I mean big end marketing. I mean, like, we're talking like big brand marketing shifts. And the reason those big brand marketing shifts are happening is because there's cultural shifts, there's systemic shifts that are happening, where people are not buying into somebody because they've got the most money to pump out the most ads, but rather they're buying into corporations, big brands, as well as small brands, based on belief systems. And so if you are not showing up authentically with your beliefs first, with your and those beliefs can be sweet beliefs like cat ears, Minecraft, and Pokemon, or for me, Harry Potter. And again, I present that, and I know that there's a dichotomous view in the Harry Potter world even, and I understand that. And what that does is it opens the door to conversation. While I love the story of Harry Potter, while I love imagination and magic and the possibilities that implores people to look into, I do not agree with the author's belief system. And so opening that door to conversation allows people to understand me as a human being, my beliefs, and they can choose whether or not they resonate with me. So if somebody watching this is like, oh, well, I do, they're like, okay, not my person. And that's okay.
Absolutely. And I've honestly turned down people who wanted to work with me on account of belief systems. Because for me, especially with the work that I do for personal branding, it's a vehicle to get to an end destination. And most people, they see the end of the road and they're like, oh, I want to be rich and famous. I want to get lots of clients. I want to, insert blank. But when you actually dig a little bit further into like, okay, well, are you actually interested in expressing yourself and connecting with your audience? Are you interested in the relationship building aspect, the community building aspect of having a personal brand? This is not just a method for you to drive traffic to your offers. And if you want to build a personal brand just for that, I'm sorry, you have missed the point. It's about connection and putting yourself out there. You have to be your brand. It's not just like an ad where you could pour money into it and suddenly like suddenly you're rich. It is something that you know what I'm trying to say
I
here. And
love
I've
everything you're
turned down
saying.
people, and I've had to very politely tell people, not saying that they have the wrong reason for building a personal brand, but I would have to tell them like, hey, I don't think this vehicle is the right fit for what you're trying to accomplish, because for the way that it's just meant to drive, you're going to put in a hell of a lot of work and then realize at some point, oh crap, like I actually have to like it does get personal. I have to, what do you mean I have to talk to people? What do you mean I have to connect? I'm like, that's the whole point of a personal brand, is personal. It sounds great, but you know.
And if you're not living your truth, you're also, and this is a really important part of it, you make a really great tactical, practical argument here. And I think everybody should be taking note. By the way, if you don't have a notebook out, you should have one. The other side of it is also, as a human being, and you're trying to put yourself out there, if it's not in alignment, if you're not actually willing to do the work to get to the goal that you want to get to within this vehicle, as you describe it, friend, you're going to burn out. And that is not a pretty picture. And you will not reach your goals. And not only will you not reach your goals, you're going to feel like shit in the process. And that's not something that anyone wishes upon a fellow entrepreneur, a fellow human being. And so when you're able to guide somebody to a better space, to maybe somebody who can serve them better, a better vehicle, I like that, a better vehicle. I think you're doing them more of a service by steering them away from potentially what you're doing.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing, though, is that there are so many vehicles that you can take, even when it comes to the way that you package and present your brand. There's a whole bunch of different options, right? Like for it, especially in the world of small business, I think we're actually in this very specific niche where it's not just personal brand or business brand, which is and has always been the age-old question, right? Is it me or is it I or we, right? Like that's kind of the big question. But I find that there's a lot of, especially like in the world of small business, for service-based entrepreneurs where you're just starting out and you are the face of what you do. Maybe you have a small team, but it's back end, and when you network, people still interact with you. Most people, they have this thing that I have coined the term a hybrid brand, where you have a business brand, but you yourself are the face of your business. And when people work with you, you are the experience. And you might have back end support and have dreams and plans to expand into bigger infrastructure. That's why it's underneath a name that's not your own. But it's flexible enough where your personality and your characteristics get adopted by the business. So the business technically does still feel like you in these early stages. So that's something that I wanted to put out there, because in the world of small business, it is very peculiar. It's very weirdly intimate, even though we all run this thing called a business that might feel impersonal. So that's something I wanted to insert into this conversation.
blow me down. Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to argue, and we can take the argument just to hear, because we've got other things that are really, I think, pertinent that people should hear. But what I'm going to argue too is that it doesn't just stop with small businesses. Let's say you do achieve that growth potential and you create a larger scale system under a brand name rather than your name. People are what your personal brand has bled into the creation of that professional brand matters, and it creates the foundation of that bigger system. And so your beliefs and your outlooks permeate the structure and the business model within that larger scale business. And so that's why it's so important in the early stages to really hunker down on what does that mean to you, your brand identity, and how is that reflected in the visual space. Now, that sounds heavy, right? Anybody watching this right now is going, the fudge? I don't want to do this. This is a lot of work. But I've talked to Rachel before, and she happens to make it pretty dang fun. So let's talk about that. How can we explore the world of representing your brand in visuals and, of course, your brand identity in a way that doesn't feel so heavy, in a way that you still get the progress done, but it feels like fun. It feels like joy, playful, all the things that make you feel happy.
Yes, this is honestly my favorite thing to talk about, because oftentimes when we talk about the visuals and marketing, there's so much damn pressure to look a certain way. And we're so focused on perfection and achieving goals that I feel like sometimes we lose sight of the original intention was, if you're going to put yourself out there, what if we kind of canceled out all of the noise? This is kind of like a tool that I use to help myself, because we use a lot of platforms that have direct access to literally the world. And somehow, when someone's watching you, you start acting differently, even when you try to act natural. Like, it just doesn't work that way. It takes out the fun.
Literally the world, no pressure. Right?
It's damn scary, and it really messes with you, especially in the earlier stages where you go in and you're like, I want to have fun with it, but I'm scared. People are looking at me. What if they make fun of me because I am learning? Like, I get it. One thing that I actually encourage people to do, especially in the earlier stages, is remove the pressure from yourself. Maybe just set up like a social media account, have 0 followers, and just treat it as your sandbox. Have fun with it, and almost treat it as like, what if this was like just a visual diary? What if you were just curating stuff on your grid that made you happy? And I'm going to draw back to like my previous experiences. As a kid, I was basically the art kid. I loved making things, but this was before the age of the internet, where I made things and I did it just because it made me happy. Most of my drawings, hundreds of drawings, have never seen the light of day, because I did it just because I wanted to process my emotions. I wanted to make something for myself. And that is honestly the birthplace out of which I discovered who I was, what made me happy, what my style was. But it was because I had this safe sandbox that allowed me to play without feeling like someone was watching me. And I adapt that into the work that I do with my clients, where I encourage you in the beginning, when it comes to the psychology of how our brains work, we do weird things when we know people are watching us. So if you want to figure out what feels the most natural to you, but you still need to do the experimenting thing, create a setting where it is literally just you, and you could goof up and laugh at yourself in front of the camera. Like, even like tell everyone to leave the house if you don't like them listening to you talking to the camera, right? Like, do what you need to do to create a space where you could just actually be yourself, and do that for as long as you need before you let people in. Because the moment you let people in, that is when things start to shift and change. And you need to have gotten enough practice in to basically not fall off the bike the moment that people start watching you ride it. So that's a very big tip that I say, that most people are like, visibility right away, start expanding your reach. I'm like, let's make sure you can ride the bike first before we get people to watch you doing the thing. You're going to fall off really quickly if you're learning while people are watching you, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And I would like to take that a step further and say that, like, you can't live there. So you need to put a time, you do actually need to create a time frame for that. So sure, you say, do that until you feel ready to go, but sometimes you're never going to feel ready. So play until you have been okay with seeing yourself just in a state of okayness, not necessarily ready, but a state of okayness, and prepared for whatever comes next. Because truthfully, if you're just starting and you show up, there's probably not going to be a lot of people watching you anyway. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Nobody's your mom might see you screw up.
Yeah.
Like, what is that, right? Like,
and she's going to support you anyway, right? Like, that's the best part.
And so just doing that, playing in that arena, absolutely. And another thing that happens if you do, let's just say, because you're ready, you're like, I'm okay with doing this in front of people now, and you do fall off the bike because people are watching. The thing about that, what's interesting about that, and this is kind of the MO for everything that I do while I'm showing up, is you're a human. People buy from people, right? That's why I said that your beliefs and your outlooks are so important. If you fall off that bike, and you get up and you keep going, you didn't show them you're a failure. You showed them you're resilient. You're a problem solver.
Yeah.
You're able to do the things that you say you're able to do, even in the face of craziness. Like my tech goes wonky, and I go, all right, well, we're moving on. We're going to just keep on talking. It's just what you do. And it's okay.
Absolutely.
Allowing that space to be okay. Now, it's still going to be scary, and you're still going to question yourself, and you're still going to be like, okay, yeah, but hold on. I don't even know what I'm doing, and I am creatively and artistically challenged. Where do I start? I hear you got some good tips.
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to visual styling, I know that there are many, many people who call themselves artistically or creatively challenged. And yes, I understand that. Not everybody thinks and sees the world in color. Most people have not gone to school to study art, or even some people, they're like, I can't even draw stick figures. And I'm like, I totally get it. And I understand. The coolest thing about what the age of the internet has done is that it has given us access to so many tools that you don't have to build from scratch anymore. And there are places, even on Canva, they have so many templates that give you a really good starting ground, and it gives you a space to play. I know it's not the same as having something that is custom made for you, but it's a good space for you to get ideas and get inspired. And honestly, even when I first started doing, when I started doing art and design, the way that they even taught us in school is you take a look at the precedents of what people have done before you, and then you draw inspiration. You learn about your own visual taste first, about, oh, I realize I really like that color, or oh, I really like this type of font, or oh, I really like the style of how they arrange stuff. And then when you start gathering inspiration, you're going to notice patterns in the things that you do and don't like. And that could be the breadcrumb trail that puts you down the path of helping you curate what actually works for you. So for people who are like total beginners, like, no, I don't expect you to design your own logo or figure out your colors, but I like encouraging people, like, go on Pinterest or go on Instagram and start gathering pictures of things that you just really like. It doesn't have to make any logical sense or have anything to do with the thing that you do, but this is kind of a mood boarding exercise that I actually walk my clients through, which is go onto the internet, pick out things, pictures, colors, visuals, whatever, that just make you happy, that you resonate with, where you see this and you're like, yes, that's so me. And just gather all of those things, and then maybe put them on like a vision board, like just lay all of those out, and you'll actually notice that there are patterns and trends. And that is the starting point to help you pinpoint, like, oh, that's my vibe. And then it kind of gives you a starting point on what types of templates would you want to hone in on, what might be like a set of colors that you could use for now as you explore. Even if you're doing it the DIY route, pinpointing exactly what your style is first gives you an easy way to start without going all over the internet and being, I like that template and that template and that template. And it helps you get confident in what your identity is, visually speaking, because you started with the things that you like and resonate the most with you.
That's actually one of my favorite activities to do. I remember the day that I was able to do that. I went over on Pinterest. I created a board, and it was, I think it was called Visual Branding Inspo, right?
Oh, yes.
I feel like that. Anyways, so I just dumped everything in there that made me feel a certain way about myself in relation to my brand, and just put it there. And I didn't even think. I didn't even go back to it for months and months and months. Genuinely speaking, just kept on dumping things there. If I had a moment, I'd go on Pinterest and scroll around. I'd find a cookie. I wanted to put that in my cookie one. And then, oh, that feels good. That feels good. That's branding. And then I sat down with a visual branding expert. And she says, do you have a Pinterest board? And I was like, actually, I do.
Yes.
So I bring it up, and she's like, oh my goodness. And then when I finally got that, when I went back to it, those patterns emerged. I didn't know. I had no idea what I was putting there. I was just but it was there. And I thought, man, oh man, am I ever happy that I did that? So for anybody watching today who hasn't quite narrowed down their brand, or if they're even going through a brand refresh, if you're like, you know what, I need to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. If you haven't already done it, Visual Branding Inspo, and you can cite me on that. No, I'm joking. But truly, Create that for yourself. Now, with that said, I know, Rachel, that you're full of gold nuggets. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to share one final piece of information that you think will rock the socks off of all the people watching today.
Absolutely. When it comes to especially personal branding, I feel like it's one of those things that are really damn hard to do for yourself. And I know because I did my own branding and it literally took me an entire month of isolation and brain dumping into a Google Doc to help me see end to end. And I've had lots of conversations with people where they've had it in their brain to get started for years, and but they stayed stuck inside their own head and they couldn't see end to end. And if you are in that space where you really just want to get going, but you're like, I have too many voices that are popping around inside and I need just someone from the outside to help see past all of the noise, help me pick out those patterns and actually just pinpoint like a really good place to start. That is where I would love to support you. I feel like oftentimes we are way too close to ourselves to make these decisions. And a lot of my clients are actually creative entrepreneurs where they are designers. They design websites. They are copywriters. These are not strangers to expressing themselves, but they're like, I'm way too close to myself to be able to do this effectively and accurately. That is where sometimes you need somebody coming in from the outside. So I would be more than happy to support you in the case that that is something that you're stuck in and you're like, I just want to get the ball going. That is basically where we can have a conversation about where that starting point can be for you so that you don't have to wait. You don't have to be stuck in limbo. You can actually get started today because personal brands do take time to build. And the best time to start is now. You're never too late, but you do have to get started. So I'm going to leave you guys with that.
Oh man, that's beautiful. Oh my goodness. And I just actually said something along those lines this morning. You know when the best time to plant a tree is, right? Well, 20 years ago, but today's the next best time. So let's go. Let's do the thing. Get the action going because it can really shake up your business. You yourself even said you were at the point where I don't know if this business is even going to go. It's taken a nosedive and I need to refresh myself. If you're feeling that anticipation of I'm starting to get into that turbulent space, I need to change something up, I'm not myself, call Rachel. It's life-changing. You gotta feel that out. Now, you just gotta whacked in the face with all sorts of amazing visual branding knowledge from our friend Rachel. And there are more people coming to talk about similar style things in this Marketing Rebels world. We look at things from a different lens. So if you're willing to entertain us for a little while longer, then you're going to be able to catch other speakers talking about similar types of topics, shaking up the world of marketing and allowing you to show up in a way that feels good. Not only feels good, but converts too. So every single week, keep your eyes peeled for the next episode that comes along. Subscribe, share with your friends, and continue the conversation. We're here to chat. I can speak for both of us. I know because I know how Rachel works. She will continue the conversation with you if you want to dive into this world. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will chat soon.